Welcome to Data Wars.
Welcome, everyone, to the next episode of Data Wars, where Ash and I talk to experts from industry and get their point of view on data, cloud, and AI, and everything that's going on in the world of agentic AI now. So it's been a while. We have been here. I apologize for missing out on the action for a while, but we today have a great guest in our series of podcasts that will feature. I'm excited to have Jagan here, Jagan Srinivasan. Jagan, we need to talk more and more, so otherwise I'll forget your last name. Jagan Srinivasan is someone I have pleasure of working with as a customer, and then we went on to become good friends, and we talk a lot about the modern age of cloud data and AI and all the implications of that, and how we want to move forward as individuals and our organizations. So Jagan, I'm super excited to have you. First of all, in this podcast,
Thank you,
it's a
Prash.
long time coming for sure, but finally, I'm happy that we're doing it. Can we perhaps start with some introductions here? Tell us a little bit about yourself, and so the
Absolutely.
audience know about you.
Yep. Nice to meet you as well, and thank you. Feel good to be here as well.
Welcome, Jagan.
And my journey, I probably will begin from when I finished, graduation and got into the field of real world technologies. Client server was the big thing back in the days. Some of the audience wouldn't have been even born by then when we were talking about, e-commerce was just coming into the waves, and client server was a big thing. Visual C++ was a big thing, and things like that. So that's when I started my journey. And when I started into the system, Oracle was the biggest database at that point. And then, of course, SQL Server was a close second. A lot of systems were, adopting all their warehouses and everything in Oracle. At that time, the biggest challenge was like, okay, we have data, but we still didn't have the horsepower to actually keep up with everything else. But that's basically when I started my journey as that. My background after 25 plus years, is now we are talking about where systems are multidimensional data models, where we are talking about vector databases, which just is not multimodal, which is textual data or PDFs and audio and visuals, but they are also multidimensional, which means at any given point in time the data is transient and dynamics, and how do we still make sense out of it and try to make a story out of it and all of that. So my experience has been moving from that to this. Worked in pharmaceutical, healthcare industry, also in wealth management, private equity, and merger acquisitions, and all of them has been my journey in that. Met a lot of people like Prash in the journey, and have been able to do some wonders because of that collaboration as well. And here we are today, going to be talking about something that's happening new, and every time you blink, something new has already been created, and we are like light years ahead from what happened yesterday. So feel awesome to be in this age as well. So thank you.
Jagan, you started as a software engineer, and then you started working with databases, and then over the years you transitioned into working purely with data across pharmaceutical and banking. Tell us just a bit about your recent involvement with AI specifically. You were at Darton, working with that stuff, and in your most recent role as well. So let's talk a bit about sort of how you got started in AI, what the initial challenges, and sort of how did you get to the point where you are today, consulting and advising clients on this.
Absolutely. I mean, I have a background in AI. I studied AI when I was in college as well, but that was way back when. And then it was like almost like talking about databases, and of course dabbling with data itself. One of the key ones is when a merger and acquisitions are happening, there were research needed to see if this is the right organization to buy, not because whether it's going to make us profitable or not, but sometimes a bolt-on, or an add-on company that you buy to make the existing one better and things like that. So that was part of the deal. So dabbling with data and things like that were happening, and all of that. The actual AI wave hit me at the same time most people got it hit, which was around the time when ChatGPT 3.0 made announcements. And I'm sure I probably will be one of the first million people who registered in the first 5 days. So I actually registered it. And so now I understood what it could potentially do. One of the first experiments that I was doing at the organization that I was working at, it was at a private equity organization. I was the chief of data there, and working closely on multiple portfolio organizations, how to set up all of their data into one single consolidated setup itself. And as is any large complex portfolio group of companies, You ask to some of the companies which are very organized and it's like, what's your data warehouse looking like? And they would give you all the stacks. Oh, we are in SQL Server. We have, Tableau as our this one and a few other intermittent and all that. And then you ask some companies, okay, can you please tell me your warehouse? Because we also want to ingest your data into our enterprise warehouse so that the mothership can look at it. And they say, oh, this is the Excel. It's like, what do you mean Excel? Yeah, this is our warehouse. I mean, whatever you call data is in the Excel. So we have stark differences between the two. And the communication also is the same thing. So coming back to your AI, what we first did was every time there is a requirement, they start with JIRA, saying that I have a JIRA requirement, you take it up and all of that. The first thing that we actually did was that send us an email, forget opening a ticket in JIRA. We will plug in ChatGPT where you'll actually code in Python, where the API reads from reads from email, or it actually has a mailbox created. And when it comes in, it automatically ingests that into a JIRA ticket in a particular epic and all of them, right? And while it's doing that, it will not just do that. We started doing prompt engineering at a very early stages of when it came out, where it would read that one-liner, try to understand what it is, and extrapolate into a requirement, and then send a reply back to the requester saying that, is this what you are asking for? And again, it will not be like an elaborate 5-page document. It will be what currently it says as TLDR. Too long, didn't read, right? So it's a very summarized version, and then it gives the details. If the person doesn't have too much time and they understand in the summary, then they'll give a thumbs up saying the reply back, and ChatGPT will pick it up, or the Python program that we wrote pick it up, and then convert that into, from a BRD, it's created into a confirmed BRD. Now let's go into design, and another Python program will do that. So in a very rudimentary format, we actually had all of that. Sorry.
So just wanted to clarify, just to understand the flow. So essentially, the organization had JIRA tickets. You suggested, let's get rid of them. Email comes in, and the Python program was reading the email.
Correct.
And then it would connect to the OpenAI APIs.
Yeah, APIs.
Okay. And it will send the context of that email to OpenAI ChatGPT APIs.
Yes.
And then that would send a response, which would be directly sent to the requester.
That will be played back to the requester. But then before it goes to the requester, it will update it into the JIRA ticket itself. And the reason it's actually updating it back is so we don't miss the moment. Another important part in that is something that I also have to emphasize is, I think everybody knows about the scenario where I think somebody from a major mobile company uploaded their code to ChatGPT, not realizing that once it's there, it's there. There is no way for it to forget it. So we were quite aware of that situation. So some of the things that we do is when the email comes in, we have a way to strip down all our private information. So keep the information generic so that it goes to OpenAI in a generic format. It gives back what it is. And then we have to redo it. So like plug it back to what is relevant and then send to the business owner. So this going back to OpenAI in an obfuscated manner or like a kind of masked out manner or encrypted way, and then bringing it back to us, that final result and the packaged version should be saved back before we lose it. Because the session was all of that.
That is such a critical capability now, right? In fact, we have within our organization I work, we have a similar setup as well. We have an infra or GPT, or internally we call it, but the idea is to do exactly that, to strip out the things that we don't want to put out in the open internet. But
exactly.
I have two-part question here, Jagan. One, something I observed, maybe I'll make a comment about that and see what your reaction is. And then I have a main question. So the first question is, I heard something when you said that about adopting these new things which are coming and be the first mover in a way. Like when you said when OpenAI launched it, you were one of the first millions or so, right? So tell me a little bit about that. So do you generally just do that, or is that like a very instinctive thing for you, or how does that work?
Good question. So I have always been on the bleeding edge, or probably a few inches ahead, trying to keep up with what is happening and all of that. Because at that point, when I was actually doing that assignment between 2020, whatever that my previous assignment, I was doing that around 22, 23 per se, and all of that. The main thing, while they also give me all kinds of tasks saying that this is what you have to do and all of that, is that end of the day, the program has to run in the most efficient way possible. That was sort of pretty much it. Now, if I go back and tell them, actually, you know what, this database is better than the other databases and things like that, it's like, okay, why are you telling me? You make the decision. If I tell them, no, I think there is another one that is better than that, I know we have an uphill like initial investment, but end of the day, it kind of evens out. What they want to know is, okay, I know you're saying all of that. Tell me where the rubber meets the road, which means that let's say we are making another investment of 50K on this one. And we just recently upgraded from system A to system B, and now I'm recommending system C. That means what happens to that investment? Assumption was that was a sunk cost. What happens and all of that. So going back to your answer, my tie-in, especially if you work for like a private equity kind of an organization, is where is the bottom line? Because they are there for the bottom line.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what happens inside the hood. And so the answer to that is I felt that this would make it super efficient, because one of the chaos that we were having was every time we had like about 500 JIRA tickets waiting, and we were not able to keep up with the pace of what's going on. And the main thing that we wanted to do was, how do you make sure we cannot go back to the customer who the portfolio company is saying that, hey, you know what, we have a backlog, so come back in January. He said, what do you mean? I have my problem today. I want it to be done today. And so the easiest way to solve it was for this one. And so this was pretty much a magic bullet. In the beginning of 2022, I actually had set that as the vision for my department, saying that, guys, we have to be automated as much as possible. When ChatGPT 3.0 came out, that became the magic bullet for us, because it kind of, now still there are people who have to go into the reporting platform, build the report, validate. Everything is absolutely there. But this was an easy, low-hanging fruit which could quickly pick it, implement it. And the results were quite phenomenal. We were actually able to show all of that results as well. So that's basically
there is
the point.
Just
huge advantage to being the
dive
first
deeper on
mover.
this, Prash, a bit more on the data flow of things, right? So I'm very curious, because most people are struggling with the use case, and you saw a fairly, every organization has this problem. You saw that, and your first, gut feeling was, hey, you know what? Let us just give it to ChatGPT, get the response back, and create a JIRA ticket from it. So it saves that backlog. It's sort of, almost kind of vetted, and somebody probably reads it once the JIRA ticket is created. So the JIRA ticket is now created using the API, and the user gets confirmation that, okay, your ticket is in the system. You still have the backlog though, right? Because now the backlog still is 500 tickets. So that's one of the automations you built just to make sure that, the individual who vets the initial
individuals is done there. Correct. Okay. So let's stick on that point also. And by the way, Prash, I know you said 2 questions and you asked the bleeding edge question.
I will come to that on Ash. Ash has an important question.
Ash, the question itself is, it's actually kind of answers in the question itself, right? The reason we have a backlog is, let's say if you talk about typical SDLC, you will have a business analyst, and then you'll have a designer who's going to be a technical designer who kind of knows the business lingo and the technical lingo, so he translates it into technology. And then once you have the BRD into a technology design document, either HLD or LLD, high-level design, low-level design, then it goes to the actual developer, be it the database person, be it the middleware person, or a data engineer, however it is, right? The thing is, if you only have 2 business analysts and you have 200 companies who are trying to build something, there are a couple of things happening. One is all 200 of them want to feel important, which means don't keep them on a waiting. The BA is busy. So instead of the BA doing it, what ChatGPT pretty much did was replace the BA. So now we have 100 BAs, right? All at the whim of it. And all we had to do was, of course, we are going to pay for the OpenAI's API calls and everything else. But then every time it comes back, now the BA's job has shrunk from being a 5-day job to every 5 minutes. That you remember the TLDR version I talked about? The TLDR can quickly be reviewed by the BA. And then every time we give a feedback, the OpenAI gets the feedback to know that this is what it is. And we pretty much had prompted upfront to make sure that there is almost a near nil hallucination, because that was another important part. Because if I keep on sending 2 companies' requirements to the same session, it is very highly possible that hallucination will kick in, because the system will get confused between which requirement is for which company. So we have to make sure that the session is dedicated for the company. So that wasn't a challenge at all. All we have to do is, when you're creating an OpenAI, our Python main program would automatically create a session. And if it's a recall of an existing one, it reuses the same session, saying that, and not reuse the session, but it'll say that this is the history. This is what the history is all about. And this is the continuing in all of them. So that way we addressed it. So the 500 backlog shrunk quickly, because the 500, not all of them, like maybe like 300 was waiting for a business analyst. Another 20 was waiting for the reporter to be ready. There is a design session. All of the whiteboard sessions were wiped out because there was no need for it. The other one also where we did it is, after the 500 became BRD, we consolidated all of them through ChatGPT's reviews to see how many of them are duplicate. So we reduced a lot of them, saying that only, okay, 8 companies need them, which means our assumption is that there will be a lot more people who need it. So let's make it like a framework that is available. So every time somebody says, I want the data from this particular source type, then we know, okay, we know what it is. So get that whole solution, plug back in, and saying that instead of telling you it's going to take us 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, now we can do it in a day because we have already done it for somebody else. All we have to do is just change the source type, change the credentials, plug it in, and let it go. So it kind
No,
of
that's
helps us
fantastic.
optimize in multi-way of
And
possible.
where did you do this sorting? Like, because when ChatGPT gives a response, it goes in your local database, and or you
Correct.
built a UI to then kind of see, okay, which requirements are duplicate, and so sort of have like your own mini
Correct.
application which
Yes.
rates
Yes.
and okay, I get
Yeah,
it now.
yeah. So we had it in our own internal DB of sorts. So JIRA, of course, captured the contents. Then the TLDR versions, we try to put it in a way that now we can consolidate all the summaries and send it back to ChatGPT, and it'll say if, and we actually do it in Excel very easily. We didn't do any complex things, right? Put in Excel, and then have ChatGPT come through the Excel, and it'll take one prompt at a time, and it's going to sort it. And it also simplified it. We gave it a simplified, like, you have this 500 line, go through the 500 lines of descriptions and group them as minimal as possible. So it started sorting, saying that, okay, number 1 is 1, number 2 is 2, and then at number 40 is similar to 4, number 70 is equal to 7, and it kind of gave us a number. And then
Nice.
if we felt that the result was more than, let's say, 100, we would do it one more time to see if it can give it a try. Now after 3 iterations, the number doesn't shrink much, then we leave it alone,
Right.
saying that that's the much we can consolidate. Sorry.
No, that's great, Jagan. So essentially, the takeaway of this piece is that any problem you're having, once you're sort of in that AI pipeline, throw it back at the AI. Like, whether it's finding duplication or trying to resolve JIRA tickets, or even like finding out, hey, does it fit in the BA requirement? Does it go to
Correct.
designer? Does it go to the
Exactly.
developer, right? How broken down is the requirement? Is it ready for the low level or not?
Correct.
No, that's helpful. Back to you, Prash.
No, this
And
is
by
great
the way, if you
discussion.
look at it, fast forward 2 years, we call that agentic architecture today. Because an AI, instead of we doing it back, we give it all to the AI, and the either OpenAI, Perplexity. There's quite a lot of AI engines today that do all the magics, almost similar, but some of them are specialized. So today, that's pretty much is agentic architecture, where you one-liner saying that consolidate all the tickets and figure it out. That's all I have to say. I mean, of course, I'll not say it in exact that terms, but that's pretty much what I'm prompting. That'll be my high-level prompt, like a parent prompt, and then it goes into the systems and start doing its magic with multiple agents running into each other and doing that.
This provides me so much clarity, Jagan. What we just went through with that use case, and that's probably just one of the use cases which you implemented, is exactly what agentic is becoming today, where they have these small pieces of Python codes, and it decides what to use when, which you were doing sort of from the get-go, because that's what enterprise needs, right? Because it has to kind of go after different things, and that's great.
Yeah. No, this is this is such an insightful discussion. The kind of level of details that you are sharing, Jagan, extremely useful. But if I can take a step back here and look it up from probably 10,000-foot view, look, I mean, historically, if you and I talked about this a lot, the why behind this technology shift from sort of the traditional way of doing things to agentic AI, in my opinion, is fundamentally rooted in solving the same problems that we are solving for decades now, right? So we used to focus on, if you take simple examples of what we used to do before, solving this issue of analytics or any downstream things that you're doing, and creating things like, single view of customer data, single view of product information, getting your transaction data high quality so you don't have to worry about it when it goes down to the analytic system. In other words, making really the data AI ready nowadays, right? So it's about that new form of data governance where we have to establish rules and not just use it on the static model, but also on kind of apply it on an autonomous system that makes decision on its own, right? And when you look at from that sort of perspective, I think everything comes as a major challenge for CIOs. For example, just looking at CIOs as the sort of drivers of agentic AI technology in the organization. So my question, I think, is a long way of coming down to the question, which I really want to ask you. Is the biggest challenge for CIOs moving beyond is moving beyond the proof of concept for agentic AI to actually focusing on the data, the governance, the change management challenges that exist, right? And how do we actually even begin to define that sort of rule of engagement when it comes to making this data ready for AI, so the CIOs can confidently go forward? Because now I know they have technical capabilities to do it, but do they have the right governance, change management, data to make this happen? What's your thoughts on that?
It's a good question. It's a very good question, and I'll try to see if I can borrow one of the examples that was shared with me by one of my friends as well. But let me put it this way, right? AI should be seen as another tool in the arsenal, which is going to automate the tool system, right? Now, AI comes in two parts. One is it's an intelligence system, and then it's an automation system, right? Uh, in the first example that I was talking to Ash about how we were using to, fast forward all the 500 open tickets and trying to do all the implementations and everything else, the main thing was it was all about automation. Along the line, we also address the intelligence part because we could figure that out also through the same mechanism that we were doing it. So it was possible. So from the question of CIOs, I think the problem that they had has always been there. Now they have a new arsenal that says AI can accelerate your solution, but for AI to be able to do it, it's as good as recruiting a fresher. If I'm recruiting a fresher, the fresher is extremely capable of doing a lot of things. But the first thing I put the fresher across is a series of trainings. What is data privacy? What is data governance? What is our company policy? Now, I was talking recently to a pharmaceutical use case where when we were going to evaluate any content that is by the company, they do not follow FDA guidelines alone, and they have their own legal guidelines. They also have guidelines on top of it, which is their company policies and things like that. So typically those policies by any of those regulated industry is far more stringent than the federal agencies. Even though federal agency says this is what you have to do and everything else, they go above and beyond to make sure they do it one step more than what is recommended, just to avoid unnecessary litigations or conflicts that kind of derails them from their core business, right? The same thing is also here as well, is that now you have a very super intelligent fresher. The first thing you go through with that is training materials. To come to your data governance question, if let's say you are hiring the fresher for a governance team, data governance team, you, along with the training, you're also going to educate that particular fresher, saying that these are our policies, these are how we actually, these are our processes. And every time somebody comes with a data, let's say there is a new system that's coming in, they want to have data access from the data warehouse, and they say we'd like to, we are an account opening system, and to open the account we need the name of the customer, first, middle, last, and we need to know their address. And let's say it's a financial institution, they would be asking about social security number and date of birth. Now, everything you would call as PII is exactly in the request. Now, if the fresher gets this request, how you would actually have trained already is that these are the classification of your data. Some are highly sensitive, some are medium sensitive, some are low sensitive. And depending on that, these are the approval cycles it goes through. If it is extremely normal, where it is like a website of an organization, if you want to know what's the website of an organization, you can automatically figure it out. You type on Google, Google itself will give it to you. So that's not secret. So it's public knowledge. But if I'm talking about a customer, that's probably your level 2 kind of a security. You cannot give it away. But if you're talking about a social security number, a date of birth, it becomes far more secure. And you take the combination of it, it's extremely secure. So you have already defined a policy. Now you have to train the AI with those policies and say that these are all it is, right? So of course now the training has to be picked up. The unfortunate difference between training an AI and training an even a fresher is that AI will take your policy to the verbatim. If a comma has been misplaced by a semicolon, it will take it as a semicolon and move on. Now, of course, it is, if you're talking about GPT-5, which just recently got out, it's far more intelligent. It's able to reasonably understand that it's a misquoted typo and things like that. But still, I would not assume that. It's an assumption, and I would not assume that, right? So, to your point of data governance, yes, it's absolutely must. But see it from a CIO's eye. It's like you are onboarding a person who is absolutely fresh. The person is super intelligent, no question about it. But train it in a way that the person knows how to train it, and you might have to tweak the training a little bit, customize it, and then move on with that. And then
I
of
love
course
it. I
data
love the
enrichment
framing of talking about this as a new arsenal in their toolkit,
in
right?
there.
And a
Yeah,
powerful one for sure. I mean,
yeah,
the
pretty
other
powerful.
thing I was reminded as you were talking about that recruitment use case is I just heard about this news I think yesterday or today. The Workday, if you guys know, is acquiring a company called Paradox.ai. I don't know if you know this news. This is a big news today or yesterday, and the idea of that is, in my way, first of all, that's a big strategic move for someone like Workday, which is not really innovated big time in HR tech space, as you probably guys have seen. They were big players, they're still a big player, but this advances them in a big way, taking up some of the biggest bottleneck in the talent acquisition, which is speed and scale, which is what we're talking
Yeah,
about, right?
yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
because if you think about the traditional recruiting process, it's all that series of manual repetitive tasks, right? Screening resume, scheduling interviews, answering common questions that candidates always have,
Yeah.
right? And now they are actually being able to hire at a speed that some of these companies in industries like retail, hospitality, healthcare, like forget technology, folks in retail and fast food and other places, where I think the stat was some 110 million jobs or what focus on this front end hospitality retail industries where people are front end people, right? They're
Mm.
talking to customers. So that kind of hiring scale is what I think they're trying to address with
Yeah,
that, which is primarily driven off of kind of moving away from this chatbot approach in the past to having a true co-pilot for recruiters, right? So they can
yeah,
quickly make
yeah.
decisions. I mean, there was one example the podcaster was giving me, which was really about, like, if you think of somebody standing in the line of McDonald's,
Mm.
right, and he's just there to get a burger, but he sees a posting there for a job in the same location where he's getting a burger, but by the time he gets from that line to get his burger out, he's already applying for a job and he's getting an yes or no question or answer from
Mm.
that company. I know it's an extreme sort of
But that's
scenario
actually
of what
what
can
is
be
needed as
possible,
well.
but it
Yeah,
Most
can
yeah,
be
yeah,
possible,
yeah.
right?
It's
If you think about
racial.
how
Exactly,
fast you
exactly.
can hire
Yeah.
in an industry where the scale is and enormous, right? So
Yeah.
it's an interesting observation, I
You
thought.
know,
So
this is the
sorry,
kind of stuff which
I
really
didn't want to
excites me.
divert,
Prash.
but yeah. Huh?
This is the kind of stuff which really excites me, what you just laid out. And that's why we're here to talk about these stories, because a lot of it is inspiration, understanding sort of, what is the possibility.
Mhm.
Like some big breakthroughs for me today have been, think of AI like a fresher.
Mm.
I have never given the analogy a thought, and I love the analogy because every time anybody approaches AI, they're like, what word problem do I solve today? Instead of, how can I solve my problem? That's the first step. What is it that I can, give it like a fresher, and, get it started with. So, it's a
Yeah,
great conversation.
Yeah, yeah.
exactly.
I think we can talk to the next topic, in my view. One question I have about this whole modernization of data stack and mitigating risk around those topics, right? I know we talked a little bit about briefly about this, chicken. See, one of my, at least in my experience, a lot of risk in high stakes industries like M&A, which happens a lot in banking, finance, insurance industries, right? In my view, the challenge with those initiative is not necessarily a bad model or anything, but it's really bad data, right? You can
Mm.
have a brilliant AI, but if it is fed inconsistent and incomplete and siloed data, the risk simply skyrockets. We have learned this over many years. I have been in the business of doing this data quality, data management, master data management work for 20 years in my life. And I consistently see the demand for these tools is still a lot, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes,
And the misconception I often see is that AI is the solution to a compliance problem. AI is solution to a bad data problem. In reality, it's mostly powerful tool,
yeah,
but enforcing those still the data quality governance activities on the AI can pay off big time, because AI
yeah,
isn't just a silver bullet all the time, right? It still
yeah,
need to be
yeah, yeah.
built on the foundation of data. So when it comes to the high stake decisions like M&A, for example, where these all sort of data issues exist, a huge financial risk if you don't get things right.
Correct.
Can you share any examples of time you saw, like,
Uh,
data quality
yeah,
governance sort of
I
playing a
can
big
share
role in
some of
those?
those that
Yeah.
we tried out. Yes,
Mhm.
yes. But exactly what you said, right? A good
Mhm.
AI comes from good data, and
Mhm.
a bad AI is pretty much because of a bad data. And I always say this when I'm also teaching to some of the students here, is that assume AI is like an extremely capable newborn baby. Now, over a period of time, when we are actually using the AI, it's going to learn from us and it's going to become a little more intelligent than day one. But if the baby is standing at the tip of a table or a tip of a cliff, and you say jump, the baby will jump. And that's where you have to be perfect, in the sense that don't jump, just turn around, climb slowly, and everything else, right? That's prompt
Yeah.
engineering 101. If I give a one liner saying that, can you give me a letter, it's going to give me a letter. It could be a full-fledged one-page letter, or it could just be an alphabet, because it's
Yeah.
depend on what it understood. And so, to your point about AI being a solution, the first thing is we'll have to make sure that the AI is trained with right sets of data, with right sets of instructions, and everything else. But even before that, if you actually don't have your fundamental data already in place, that is where the investment should be. And that's where most companies are also thinking about it right now. Is, I think some of them probably jump right on head on first, saying that, okay, AI is going to solve my problem, and they are investing heavily, only to find out that now that they've found out that the AI is actually invested, infrastructure set up and everything else, only that it's not giving the results they expected it, because the data is not right. It's not that data is wrong. It might be because it's incomplete. It might not
Yeah.
be there at all. Like, for example, if I had an upstream restriction that says my first name cannot be more than, let's say, actually driver's license had that, right? It cannot be more than 8 characters, or 9 characters, which means, what if your first name is longer than 8 characters? So your passport
Here,
will have one
my
name,
name.
your driver's license will have one name, exactly, right? So and that is a common problem. So even when from where I am, in the 6 point of identification and all of that, when they want for it, the passport will have one name which is longer than 8 characters, and my driver's license will have less than 8 characters. Now they have fixed it,
Yeah.
but then that is the upstream problem. So if you try to do an MDM of that, only with the first name, it is close enough for a match. But if for any other reason the other identity field that is used has a disconnect, then this is going to be rejected as a not the same data, which
Yeah.
means
Yeah.
data has to be enriched. So, and not just enriched in the system that is feeding into the AI, you'll have to trace it back to the lineage, saying that, is the data problem generated from there? And I might actually fix it at the point where I am by reasoning what it could be. USPS is a classic example where, let's say, your address is partial. You can integrate it with systems like Address Doctor or even USPS data and everything else. So you can enrich the address. But that will only kind of solve the problem at the tail end. You can actually fix it at the front end, where it's captured, saying that, get the full address or do the validation right there. So all the system that's coming down actually takes it. So to Prash your point,
Yeah.
100% spot on. That is not even up for any kind of a
Debate anymore.
negotiation.
Debate anymore, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like, don't compromise on it. Governance was always seen as like a pain in the neck, because it was a process and we'll have to follow it. And most
Yeah.
of the time, governance was enforced because of security reasons. But
Hmm.
now there is far more emphasis. This is not security alone. It's like your basics. If you want your AI to
Yeah.
perform well,
Yeah.
unless your data that is coming in is going to be better, AI will not be able
Yeah.
to train better. Now,
Yeah.
once the AI is
Yeah.
matured, it can solve the problem, or whatever they are trying to
Right.
Exactly.
solve.
Right.
And even in a
You know,
world of like evolving regulations and stuff, right? Like if you look about how do we design an AI system
yeah.
for something like KYC or
Yeah,
HIPAA, like very
Yeah.
classic examples in be it banking, financial services, or
yeah, yeah,
healthcare,
yeah, yeah,
that is accurate on day one for sure, but
yeah.
also can adopt and remain transparent and accurate as the rules change, because
Yeah.
HIPAA rules are going to change tomorrow, right?
Exactly,
So
exactly.
making sure that that sort of explainability is there on that problem is an interesting challenge for
Hmm.
Yeah,
governance
yeah.
folks, right? Because it's not
Correct,
at that
correct.
point not just technology, it's about more making sure how do you continue to keep it up to date, because you have to
Exactly,
go after reliable sources of information
Yeah.
as to
correct.
how the
Exactly,
rule changed,
exactly.
right?
Yeah.
Correct.
So that's an interesting point. Yeah.
You know,
Very,
in the
very, very,
last
very.
2 years, I have observed most organizations, the resistance which was there for data governance and investing in data quality tools. There has been a huge adoption of metadata repository tools. For Collibra is a great example, and sort of that integration on the platform side as well, where the repository now also have data quality built in it. You have ownership you can assign in the repository. So I think the tools are also coming along as adoption is increasing, but I see less and less resistance, especially after launch of ChatGPT, where people realize that bad data will be bad AI. So this conversation is shifting in
Yeah.
the last 2 years.
Yes. Yes.
One of the things which I always think of is, this existing generation which is graduating today. Yeah, I personally had some big breakthroughs on the use cases you mentioned, on using JIRA and ChatGPT. Um, how do you look at, the current generation which is graduating today, and what should they be focusing on, when they hear the word AI coming after their jobs?
Um, Good question. In fact, that's the most frequent question I've been asked these days. Is large organizations are doing corrections right now. We have heard them all lay off 9K here, 5K there, and then we also heard a large bank, onboarding an AI engine, as that's going to be working alongside their IT team, and it's going to be onboarded, or probably it's already onboarded per se, and it's going to be working along with all their employees. And the goal itself is slowly that um, AI software developer is going to take over positions that are assumed to be mundane, something that it can be run down with that, right? Let's put the obvious ones in the table. AI is going to work 24/7. If I go to work, I come back after 8-9 hours. If I have a crunch
And I'm
time, there is a
tired. I'm
critical
done with the
deliverable.
day. I'm
Yeah,
frustrated.
exactly. Exactly. And if there is a
Yeah.
crunch time, there is a critical deliverable, and there is something that we have to do, especially on a high stake kind of a deployment, then we stick around for like 12 hours, 14 hours, 15 hours, probably maybe for a month or so at max, right? That's at the tipping point. At that point, you are pretty much burnt out. And everybody's gone through it, and at least once or twice, probably 100 times in their career. But AI doesn't go through that. AI has a predictability of when it can finish. Now, that predictability at this point is we are learning, but AI probably already knows. And over a period of time, we know exactly, regardless of crunch time, AI can do it or not. The best thing about AI is that you have 100 AIs working together, 100 AI agents working together on something, and you have a deployment issue coming up. You just double it. You just pretty much increase
Right.
the thread count from 100 to 200.
200
Then
agents
you have
now.
200 resources doing that. And the best thing is, all the other extra 100 resources knows exactly what the first 100 knows, as far as experience goes. So there
True.
is zero
Context is
training
there.
time.
Yeah.
Correct. Everything is there. Context is there, experience is there, data knowledge is there. So there is zero ramp up time when it comes to increasing that. So that's the obvious one. So is the threat there? I don't know whether to call it a threat, but of course there is a direct competition for having these capabilities and all of them. Coming back to the original question, what do we do? And my classic example is, if I actually say that gasoline is actually a direct competition to coal, and so let's not continue with gasoline or any kind of a petroleum product, I don't think any one of us would have flown an airplane. Absolutely
Right.
not. We would still be sticking around on a steam engine at best, and it's going to take me everything that can be possibly done through land and maybe a steamship. But steamships take time to cross anywhere, and so this innovation that is happening is a kind of a necessary part of it. It's part of our evolution of what it is. Now that means, what do the freshers do? I mean, I know a few people who actually get into data science and IT 4 years ago, hoping that they're going to achieve the gold mine.
Right.
And here you are 4 years later, ChatGPT is not just 3.0, it's 4.0, and on 5.0 is even more intelligent. But it's not stopping there, right? There is Perplexity
Yeah.
and a few others that are out there that are doing same similar wonders. My recommendation, for them to start learning those things and see how they can manage and maneuver them. Because now, whether AI has taken over existing jobs, probably, but there are going to be a new ones, because the capabilities have multitude of possibilities, right? Now, if you look at it, and this is what I was explaining to one of the student as well. Now, if AI goes to schools, what happens to the teachers? And then I'm not against teachers. In fact, teachers should also be there. We need them. But then the intent of school is for the students to learn better. So if the students are learning similar kind of education from chat GPTs of the world or any of the generative AIs, all for it. Because I started learning only from a textbook that was given to me at school. Then when I came to college, I had access to library. We exposed more. Once we got internet was our library. Today, what we have is a customized, intelligent teacher who teaches at my level, right? Similar to that, when we are trying to build softwares, we have softwares that are built at our scale. And I'm not joking when I'm saying this. Just literally yesterday, I was giving an overview of what is AI and how AIs work and everything else. And one student, well, actually, I think he's probably just graduated or he's in the final years of it, was able to, I explained him how you can use Gen AI to build an entire software. And I showed him probably just 15 minutes of overview and everything else, and gave a couple of tidbits here and there and all of that. In about 10 minutes, he was able to create a full front end, fully functional front end, fully functional back end. And all of that it does is it does all the engineering mathematical problem. You give a problem, you give a what equation you're trying to do and all of that, and it's actually able to build it. The thing is, for creating a calculator type of software, which is starting with a good user interface, has a capability of everything that you call it as engineering math, and able to get it all done, you'll need at least 2 or 3 people, dedicate time at least for a week's time, and then there is a couple of back and forth requirements and everything else, right? He finished it all in under a matter of like 10 minutes max.
Wow.
Which means we have actually been able to produce more softwares, higher quality softwares. But the most important thing is we gave that entire capability in the hands of the business owner. That is the big difference. So that is how I would see it as now, instead of just being an IT person, evolve into the person who can create them. Hire the ChatGPTs as your employees. Whether you are going to be working for somebody else or not, I think eventually organizations are going to do that. They're going to onboard one or the other version of Gen AI. Some of them are probably trying to frame the policy so that there is no misuse of it, like the one that happened with the mobile phone company, or it could be something else as well. But while they set it up, in another year's time, probably even shorter, people will start onboarding the softwares like Devin and few other systems, right? Which is going to be a software engineer AI, which is going to sit there to do a job. Then what the new jobs are going to be is managing that. What the business have to do is how to evolve it. Now they have infinite possibilities as employees, right? That is where it's going to go. The other one, and I'll stop at that, is that when gasoline, like the example I was mentioning about, and when aircrafts were invented and all, the first thing that did was travel. Think about a moment today when COVID was out there and people were informed that flights will not be flying anymore, how people were impacted, right? It is like an absolutely phenomenal thing that happened in the world. And 4 or 5 days, I mean, 4 or 5, I think we almost like not months, actually, for a couple of years, we didn't have anything, right? So, which means now that's exactly what we are going right now. And we have to evolve from here. And I was actually interacting with ChatGPT itself a few months back, asking, what are the new industries? Okay, now this evolution is happening. I already asked the question that is going to be the shockwave. Are the jobs going to be wiped out and all? Microsoft's list has data science as one of the jobs that's going to get wiped out. Okay, but I
While this was
honestly
the
believe
hottest job just a
It's
few
the
years
hottest
ago,
job, yeah.
right?
exactly right.
Yeah.
But in all honesty, if we are actually true business owners, we would say that pretty much the entire IT is getting replaced, because we have something that's far more intelligent, far more capable, and far more faster at resolving situations that needs solutions, right? Now it's going to learn. That's going to be a couple of points where it's going to trip over and fail, and severity one defects and everything else will happen. But then that's where the trajectory is going. Now, if you actually continue on that, one thing I'll say that
Please.
what industries are going to be created, and that was a question that I was asking ChatGPT, completely thinking out of the box, and I wouldn't have thought about this as well. It said that one of the things that is also getting solved along with technology is people living longer, and people are going to live around 120, 125 very normally. Healthy people. I'm not saying people who are going to be in crutches or bed and all that. Healthy people. Then what happens is you suddenly have a customer base of 80 to 120 who might have money. I'm sure they will have money to travel and everything, and they want to go to places, and but you will need special situations to help them get there. Now, how you have accessibility slopes for people to go up easily instead of going through multiple climbing stairs and things like that. Let's say we have a person who's 90, and the couple is 90 and 95, and they want to see a volcano. They want to see how the lavas come in a volcano. They can get there by train, car, or however, now, or a plane. Now you put a quadcopter, make them sit there, and take them close to that. They're not getting to the lava place, but they're getting close to that mouth of the volcano, and they can see it. Two industries. One, you just found out a tourist industry that will take extremely elderly people, and then how do you keep them entertained as well? Just out of the blue. And this is ChatGPT envisioning,
Your
right?
passion
Without
for
even
this
knowledge.
topic, Jagan, shows in your response to me. So, it just, I think there is this notion that anything like this new comes in and it completely will wipe out the jobs, even the humanity. I mean, there's this whole
It,
discussion about these things, right? I think one thing which is often underestimated is the resiliency of the human beings
exactly, exactly,
as the creatures, right?
exactly. 100%.
The other example I give is, like, think of it like this way: when humans first discovered fire, it was incredibly useful for making food tastier and all that, right? Yet
Yeah,
at the same time, it also posted a danger and even the greatest
yeah,
threat to humanity at that point, probably,
correct,
because you could
correct,
get
correct.
or the
Because it
whole
could
human
get burnt.
being might
Yeah,
be wiped out from the planet, right?
yeah,
But look
yeah,
at how far we have come. We have
correct.
found so many ways to use fire that our
Yeah,
ancestor could have never imagined, right? I feel like
yeah.
we are at the same place when it comes
At the
to
tipping
AI
point.
at
Yeah,
the point,
exactly.
right? The
Yeah,
benefit
Yeah,
for
missionaries.
out far overweigh the harm, and
yeah,
Yeah.
we humans, what we'll do is, when we adapt and we survive and make the best out of the tools we
exactly,
stumble on and create the new
exactly.
world we are. My
New
my
opportunities and new.
my Okay, here is the controversial, maybe, or over optimistic product projection. With all the advent of AI and everything, and the kind of innovation we are seeing in the life sciences, just for as an example,
Mm.
my guess is in under 25, 30 years, and probably, hopefully, all survive to see this, probably we'll see a cancer-free world, right?
Yeah, I
I
100%
think we
believe so
will
as
we
well.
will have a
100%.
real shot at something as big as that
Yeah,
with this
yeah,
innovation that we are
Yeah.
on. And for
yeah,
me, just keeping that in mind, it's amazing thing we are doing,
yeah,
right? I think
Interesting.
we all need to just embrace and go forward rather
Mm.
than
100%, 100%.
second
100%.
guessing and looking at
Yeah.
these midterms, short term,
Yeah.
fears
Listening to
that will
both of
happen.
you, it reminds me of SoftBank put out a 300-year vision. If you guys have not seen it, this is in 2017, 18, right before they bought ARM for chip processing. And their 300-year vision, Jagan, is very much to what you said. It was health, entertainment. There's some key pillars of that, and AI was definitely a big part. Robotics was a big
Yeah,
part of that.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I just wanted to, while you were talking about you're speaking of the student who built the calculator, in 10 minutes. When you talk to students or anybody, what tools do you recommend, for people in the AI space who are trying to learn in, AI space? There's so many different, there's
Mhm.
N8N, LangChain, there's so much going on there. How do you get people started in there when you teach them?
It a good question, and then this depends on whether they are coming from an IT background and they want to get deeper and deeper in IT, or they want to just be somebody who's on the functional business side of it and not too much worry about what language it is, how to build it, and things like that. And both examples can be built using the AI agents today to
Mm.
do all of that. In
Mm.
fact, you can build a complete fully operational agent using ChatGPT 5 and interact with it enough to say that give me a software, and it will be able to build a software and give it to you. Everybody does it, and people have gotten there as well. So to answer your question, it's basically, if they want to be functional, then be on the functional side, perfect
Mm.
yourself on prompt engineering. And there are a lot of samples that are out there as templates. Even LinkedIn has quite a few as well, but that is just a basic building block. It's not the, I would say, a perfect prompt engineering
Mm.
that would make a person better. It basically tells you, I know prompt engineering.
Mm.
What real prompt engineering itself is that you give a prompt where your role is clear, your context is clear, but that entire description, spend some time on that, because that is
Mm.
basically me instructing the AI to do a magical software of whatever I want to do. And I
Mm.
cannot, what you can say, uh, I cannot cut corners on it at all. I have to be very crispy. So prompt engineering is going beyond just filling a role, filling a temperature, filling a k value, and all of that. It's going to the depths of building the retail. It's as good as writing a full-fledged BRD. It's just that the BRD has to be very specific. It has to be clear,
Mm.
understand with AI and everything. And these days, the AI is actually asking a question back, saying that is this what you wanted? Or is that what you wanted, and everything else, right? In fact, yesterday I was dabbling while I was teaching the students, saying that I'm going to show you how it can be done. And I was
Mm.
actually running an example of, I want to build a travel app,
Mm.
and I'm not asking for a travel app that I'm going to put it across like any of the commercial ones like Expedia and a few other things. I want this app to only service for me,
Mm.
and I want it to tell me day trips from whichever location I am in. It has to tell me this is the day trips, and that's all it is. I just
Yeah.
put like a few paragraphs of it, and it built it all in about 5 minutes, right? So that's what I would say one side of the equation should learn. If they are true technologists, then there are always a possibilities where they could create LLMs instead of L, replace with S or micro. And that could entirely be possible because now creating an LLM has become an industry. I don't know whether you notice it. So LangChain is a framework, but if you look at Hugging Face itself, there are hundreds of models in there. For you name it as a problem, it's there. For looking at your audio and looking at your video, you can piecemeal it and stitch it, and all of them, you put it all together using LangChain or however, it actually gives you a full-fledged solution. So one extreme, which is I think the majority, is people are going to realize that now whatever used to be the business user is not dependent on IT anymore. The business user can build the software or the solution, whatever they're trying to do, right? And that will become the bigger growth. And most of the time, I'm seeing a lot of entrepreneurs coming out of it is that, okay, now I actually don't have to do anything else. The magic is how to make revenue out of it. That's probably the where they will struggle is, okay, I know how to build software. I'm able to do it. Now, how do I make money out of it? That's probably a trick.
Good point.
I do not know what's the magic answer for it, but that's probably the one thing that they'll have to find out and how to solve. The other one is where they are going to be true technologists and who will be building LLMs, who are building products and solutions, which are going to help the others get what they're achieving to do.
Yeah. So any tools you work with, Jagan, on the technology side, which you are at
Mostly the
liberty to share with
languages.
the audience?
Yeah. So the language I predominantly am comfortable using it when I'm actually dabbling it. And of course, I work very heavily with ChatGPT, OpenAI, or Perplexity, and of course there is a few others that I play with. But these are the two main ones that I work with. Of course, Claude, Gemini, and the usual ones. Llama. I also am now working to see if I could train a llama. There's a 4 GB version of it, so I can just download it and try and see if I could do it in the laptop, and just train the whole thing and see what it does of sorts, right? So, and build products and everything else. I also have a product organization, so I'm trying to build those products from my incubation shops itself. So build those products, be it software, hardware, or a combination of IoTs and things like that. That's one part of it. The other one is if I'm actually going to deploy it. Let's say I built a product, I initially built it all in Python, and I'm going to deploy it. Then I switch from Python to C++. The entire thing is all written in C++. The one thing I would recommend, though, and this is something I recommend very, very, very highly to anybody who is getting into this field, is understand the language in which you are creating the product. Because if I depend, and that's something I always 100% recommend with extreme conviction, is that ChatGPT will build me an amazing product, no doubt about it. But then if it's doing something minusculely small, the problem is while doing amazingly beautiful program, ChatGPT created me an 800,000 gorilla. It's 800,000 lines of code, right? So if I have to change it somewhere, I can't always go back to ChatGPT. It will resolve it for me. But then my responsibility should be, I should know my code, where it is doing, what it's doing wrong, and everything else, and go back in there. And the most important thing in all of that is exactly what Prash was saying it, right? AI governance, right? I should be able to find out if my AI, which is also by itself with agentic architecture, is going to be smart. Is it too smart that is doing something I don't want it to? And at some point, I should have a kind of a, what you can say, a panic button kind of a thing, which I press it and it resets itself. And I had to bring it back so that it doesn't happen. Now, I'm not saying Terminator is going to be here and now. The Terminator kind of a equation is here and now, but then one could be the good one, the other could be the bad one, right? At some point, you'll have to reset it, right? So you'll have to figure that out as well. That's my
I think we'll need
recommendation.
a part 2, Jagan, just to talk about this last bit, which
I literally
I
thought
asked
about
you.
that because we've already spent 55 minutes now. And I almost felt like we should do a, Joe Rogan style and keep going for 2-3
Yeah.
hours. But I value your time, Jagan. This has been an incredibly valuable just discussion. Just, forget about what we're delivering to our podcast listeners, but just for me to listen to your insights has been just amazing. So thank you for that part. Ash, anything you want to say before we close? Or
No, I
Jagan,
just want to
even
thank
from
you,
you,
Jagan,
any last thoughts? Yeah.
for your time, and don't be surprised if we reach out to you again for part 2. To just dive deeper into the models and the actual implementation and learning of things. Do you want to kind of leave the audience with what's the best way to reach you if they want to get in touch with you? Where can they find you?
LinkedIn is the easiest way to reach me. I am available on LinkedIn. I'm quite active in LinkedIn as well. I get pinged by students or even others as well. And I am quite active on LinkedIn as well. And I have my email on LinkedIn. So that's the two easier way to reach out to me. And, I will always be glad to discuss any of these. And I also enjoy coaching students. So that's another one. Right? Feel free to ping me. Let's do it together. And chances are I will probably learn more from them than me. So,
That's wonderful, Jagan. I appreciate you offering that, and I'm pretty sure some of our audience can take you up on that offer. I hope they do, especially any newer generation, which is
I
kind of
know I will
confused and
be.
starts figuring out what to do next in the world of AI. Where do I focus? What do I
I know.
learn? What do I do? Right? I think those are important questions. I think we'll definitely need help. So I think with that we'll wrap. Ash, anything else before we say
No.
bye to our audience? Good. Okay.
Yeah.
In that case, guys, thanks for listening to this podcast and another amazing insight from extremely great guy here, Jagan. Thank you. And we'll see you around in the next portion of Data Wars podcast. Thank you for listening.
Well, thank you all for joining.